The Mendelssohn family lived on the outer and was a pavilion where young Felix were attended by the many friends of the family. Distinguished guests assembled to hear Felix conduct his latest composition, the overture. He was a slim, handsome boy of 17, curly brown hair and a friendly smile, leading the musicians in his overture. The first theme suggested the fairy atmosphere of Shakespeare's immortal comedy. He made the violins play it in a high register, very soft and staccato, that is, short and detached. The second theme suggests the lovers in the play. It is played legato, smooth and connected. The third theme, played fortissimo, suggests the boisterous dance of the clouds. If you listen carefully, you can hear Bottom braying like a donkey, for he has been bewitched by Puck. The themes are set forth in the first section, which is called the exposition. In the middle section of the overture, known as the development, the themes are woven into exciting new patterns. In the final section of the overture, we hear the themes more or less as they first appeared. for which reason this section is called the recapitulation or restatement. A coda or closing section rounds off the overture. The audience in the garden house marveled that a boy of 17 should have been able to compose so beautiful an overture. They compared him to the immortal Mozart. Felix loved the garden of the great house, especially in the springtime, when the trees and flowers, after their long winter sleep, awoke. He captured the wonder of this awakening in his spring song. The famous melody is embellished with grace notes. These are little notes that have no time value of their own, but are attached to the longer note that follows. In those days, young men often completed their education by making a grand tour of Europe. Felix's father felt that such a journey would be a wonderful experience for the young composer. Felix set out in high spirits. The first stop was London, which was then the largest city in the world. To his family, Felix wrote, "London is the grandest and most complicated monster on the face of the earth." Then came a trip to Scotland. During his stay in Scotland, Felix visited the Hebrides Islands. He saw the famous formation of rocks known as Fingal's Cave that came jutting out of the sea. The waves roared into the great cave, and the wind howled above them. As Felix watched this picturesque scene, he heard in his mind the opening measures of the Fingal's Cave Overture. visit home, Felix resumed his travels. This time he journeyed south, to Italy. He fell in love with its blue skies and warm-hearted people. Felix captured the color and charm of this sunny land in his Italian symphony. The first movement is marked fast and lively. The violins open with a gay, brilliant theme. The second theme, more leisurely and relaxed, is introduced by the clarinets. The slow movement of the Italian symphony is known as the Pilgrim's March. It was inspired by a religious procession in the streets of Naples. This movement is marked andante con moto, fairly slow but moving along. It is in 4/4 time, which means that there are 4 beats to the measure. A serene melody unfolds above a pizzicato accompaniment in the cellos and double basses. The final movement of the Italian symphony is a gay presto, very fast. Felix here used the rhythm of the popular Italian dance known as saltarello, a jumping dance. Headlong pace never slackens for a moment. A vivid coda brings this gay movement to a close. The Italian Symphony shows all the fine traits of Felix's style, his flowing melodies, his bright orchestral color, and his ability to fashion music into a tightly knit form. When his travels were over, Mendelssohn returned to his homeland. He became the most famous musician in Germany. Before long, he was appointed conductor of the Leipzig Orchestra. Under his direction, this orchestra developed into the finest in Europe. Mendelssohn also founded and directed the Leipzig Conservatory, which attracted students from all over the world. Due to his efforts, Leipzig became the musical center of Germany. In spite of his many duties, he found time to appear in public, not only as conductor but also as pianist, and was received by audiences everywhere with the greatest enthusiasm. Shortly after he settled in Leipzig, Mendelssohn fell in love with a beautiful girl named Cécile Jean Reynaud, who came of a French family. He married Cécile, who made him a loyal and devoted wife. Mendelssohn found great happiness in his marriage. At this time, Mendelssohn began to compose a series of piano pieces called Songs Without Words. They became extremely popular with pianists young and old. One of the finest pieces in the collection is the delightful spinning song. The melody is played very lightly, staccato, by the fourth and fifth fingers of the right hand, while the thumb and second finger play a running accompaniment that suggests the hum of the spinning wheel. Mendelssohn's fame was so great that the King of Prussia, Frederick William IV, asked him to come to Berlin. The king assigned to him a number of tasks, the most important of which was to write the music for a production of Midsummer Night's Dream at the Royal Palace. Thus Mendelssohn returned to the subject that had fascinated him in his boyhood and added several numbers to the overture. The scherzo, like the overture, has an atmosphere of elfin enchantment. The opening theme is a staccato melody in the upper register, played by the woodwind instruments pianissimo. Puck asks, "How now, spirit? Whither wander you?" The elf answers, "Over hill, over dale, through bush, through briar." A contrasting melody is introduced by the string instruments in the lower register. The nocturne, which is played while the lovers are asleep in the enchanted woods, reveals Mendelssohn as a poet of nature. It opens with a serene melody played by the French horn, whose gentle tone is used here to suggest the magic of the forest. Finally, the complications in the play are ironed out, and all ends happily with the marriage of the Duke and Hippolyta. A bold fanfare on the trumpets introduces the famous wedding march, which is marked Allegro vivace. The main theme appears 3 times, in alternation with quieter sections, so that the form of the piece follows the pattern A, B, A, C, A. After a year in Berlin, Mendelssohn returned to Leipzig. His assistant there was the concertmaster of the orchestra, the violinist Ferdinand David. They had been friends since their early youth. In the summer of 1838, Mendelssohn wrote to David, "I should like to compose a violin concerto for you next winter. One is running through my head, and the beginning of it does not leave me in peace." Thus was born the most popular violin concerto ever written. The first movement is an allegro molto appassionato, very fast and impassioned. The entire first solo is written for the highest string of the violin, the E string. In this concerto, Mendelssohn did away with the usual introduction by the orchestra. The soloist begins at once. The second theme is a lyric melody that is played by flutes and clarinets, pianissimo, over a sustained tone on the violin. The final section of the movement, the coda, gives an effect of climax, due to gradual crescendo as well as a speeding up. The music moves in the brilliant upper register. The middle movement is an andante. It opens with a lyric theme on the violin. The wind instruments, playing fortissimo, announce the final movement. This is an allegro molto vivace, very fast and lively. The main theme comes back again and again, alternating with subordinate melodies. The chief melody is typical of Mendelssohn in its lightness and gaiety. It requires nimble fingers. world remembers Felix Mendelssohn as a happy composer. He was fortunate in all things. He was born to wealth. He used his genius wisely and well. He found happiness in his family life, and he was admired by a wide public. His happy temperament overflowed into music that is full of grace and charm and unfailing high spirits.